In a room shaking with dissent, one figure stood alone, challenging decades of chaos in the UK's asylum system. Voices clashed, MP shouted, headlines began to crawl across every screen, commentators rushed to declare victory or defeat before the dust had even settled. But in the middle of the noise, Shabana Mahmood didn't raise her voice. She changed the tone, and with one measured moment, Westminster realised something historic was unfolding. But this was just the beginning. For the nation, zoom out now. This wasn't just another policy speech. Britain's asylum system was buckling under pressure, borders in chaos, human lives trapped between paperwork and politics, while an election loomed like a ticking clock. For years, governments promised control and delivered confusion, promised toughness and produced cruelty. This moment mattered because the country was searching for its conscience. No one thought this moment would come, until she walked into the chamber with a document that could rewrite the future. Suddenly, this wasn't bureaucracy. It was identity, values, and power colliding. And then the opposition erupted across the stunned political establishment. They weren't a single face or a single party. They were a force, a familiar chorus of resistance that surfaced every time change threatened the status quo. Hardliners on the right warned of invasion. Purists on the left warned of betrayal. Media voices recycled outrage, looping images of boats and borders until fear felt normal. For years, this coalition thrived on reaction, not solutions. Policies lurched from cruelty to chaos, asylum seekers warehoused in hotels, families lost in paperwork, decisions delayed until hope expired. Each failure fed public anger, and that anger became their fuel. They spoke loudly, confidently, armed with old slogans and selective memories. They mocked compassion as weakness and framed humanity as a liability. In their world, fear was strategy and division was discipline. Against that noise, they felt untouchable, certain the system would always bend back in their favour. They believed no one could challenge the narrative without paying a political price. They were wrong, because as their confidence peaked, she leaned forward and delivered a line so clear that her fiercest critics stopped breathing cold. Shabana Mahmood was never shaped by comfort. She grew up watching ordinary families navigate systems that rarely listened, and that early lesson planted a quiet obsession with justice. In Parliament, she built a reputation not on theatrics, but on preparation, often willing to challenge her own side when principle mattered more than applause. Colleagues remember moments when she voted with her conscience, knowing the cost. Away from cameras, she spent evenings in community halls and cramped offices, listening to refugees describe paperwork that erased their names and policies that blurred their futures. Those conversations stayed with her. They hardened her resolve without hardening her heart. She carried fear like everyone else, but she never let it speak for her. Online, supporters shared old clips of her speeches, praising her steadiness, calling her real, posting hearts and flags side by side. In cafes and living rooms, people said her name with cautious hope. She wasn't chasing a moment. She was answering it. Every step carried the weight of expectations she refused to escape or surrender to fear or doubt. And that's when she walked into the most hostile room in Parliament. She unveiled the plan and the chamber exploded. Opponents shouted across the aisle. Allies leaned forward, bracing. Cameras flashed, capturing every raised eyebrow and clenched jaw. Through the roar, her voice stayed steady, precise, unwilling to bend. She spoke of order with humanity, control without cruelty. Critics lunged with old talking points, interruptions, familiar sneers meant to rattle her focus. The noise swelled, tension tightening like a held breath. Viewers at home leaned closer, waiting for the crack, the stumble, the mistake. Then, in a moment no one expected, she paused, and the room fell silent in stunned disbelief everywhere. She didn't raise her voice. She revealed the truth. Piece by piece, she turned numbers into names, statistics into stories of families trapped in limbo, children growing up between interviews, lives paused by endless waiting. Each example landed softly but with undeniable weight. She laid out solutions that were firm yet humane, systems that worked because they remembered who they were built for. Then came the hard truths. Cruelty had never created control, and chaos was the cost of political cowardice. Gasps rippled through the chamber, murmurs replaced mockery. In the press gallery, journalists leaned forward, pens frozen. MP tried to interrupt, but no one found the opening. Phones lit up across the country as clips spread in real time, timelines flooding with disbelief turning into respect. She looked over the room, waited, then delivered a line that redefined the debate, stripping fear of its authority and replacing it with clarity. You could see it then, the confidence cracking on the other side. This was the moment everything shifted, when viewers knew she had changed the narrative. But the battle had only just begun. The impact spread far beyond Westminster. Hashtags surged within minutes, clips racing across feeds as commentators declared a turning point on air. Refugees shared quiet messages of relief, saying for the first time they felt seen rather than spoken about. Even critics shifted tone, retreating from outrage to recalculation. This is the reset we needed. One post read, another asked, did she just out-debate the entire assembly? Newspapers rushed analysis. Broadcasters replayed the pause, voters debated it in cafes, and overseas media framed it as a defining British moment. The story escaped policy pages and entered public conscience. This was no longer niche politics. It was dignity, justice, and the soul of the country colliding. And then one supreme test loomed ahead. The debate ended, but its meaning stretched far beyond the chamber. The new asylum approach was never about scoring points. It was about restoring dignity, taking responsibility, and honouring common humanity. It showed that courage could confront fear, that vision could turn hardship into hope, and that leadership could rise above anger and division. This moment reminded a divided nation what it means to care, to act, and to lead with heart. Citizens watching weren't just spectators. They were part of the story, responsible for shaping the identity and future of their country. Across homes, cafes, and online communities, people felt seen, validated, inspired to think differently and to act. Reflection replaced cynicism. Hope replaced resignation. The narrative became one of empowerment, not politics, of unity, not faction. And yet the air still held tension, a reminder that progress demands vigilance and resilience. Because this chapter closes, only to open a new one. Share your thoughts below. Hit subscribe if you believe in dignity, reason, and leadership that listens. Share this with someone who needs hope today, someone who believes in justice over fear. Every voice matters, every action counts. History watches. What story will you tell?